Good morning, I'm Harley Schlanger from the LaRouche Organization with your daily video update for January 30th, 2024. The topic today is that there is no such thing as a rules-based order. There's only an agreement among the most powerful nations in the world, led by the United States and its NATO allies, to allow the looting and plunder to continue, to be backed up by threats of war from the war machine in the West. And what we're seeing now is a growing revolt against it. The question is, will the people in the Western nations assert their sovereign rights as citizens to stop this? Or will they sit back as the war continues, as the move toward genocide accelerates, and the recognition will soon grow that it's the citizens of the West that will be the next round of targets for the predatory looters? Tomorrow, the UN Security Council will hear a motion from Algeria to make the ruling by the International Court of Justice binding, to have a binding effect to stop the genocide against Palestinians. Now, most people who watch these videos should be aware that the actual ruling for the court was that the charges of genocide against Israel are legitimate subjects for discussion, and that the court laid out a series of steps that must be taken to ensure the genocide does not occur. They did not go for a ceasefire because that was not within their purview. That's in the continuing investigation into genocide. But the 6 steps that they made, which are detailed in the report that's submitted by me at the bottom of the description page, the details cover the fact that there must be an end to the policy of indiscriminate targeting of the civilian population of Palestine. As the foreign minister of South Africa said, it was in effect a demand for a ceasefire. Now, meanwhile, there's killing continuing despite the call for no more killing. There's one of the concerns was no more incitement from Israeli government. But as you'll see, that incitement for violence continues. Now, all of this is occurring with the whole world watching to see what will happen at the UN Security Council. Will the US use its veto to protect the war machine once again? And if so, what will be the reaction? Now, meanwhile, there's growing recognition internationally that the war in Ukraine against Russia is lost, that it's not about democracy and freedom, but about punishing Russia for refusing to accept the terms of the military enforcement of the unipolar order, which includes giving up its sovereignty, opening up its raw material wealth and its physical wealth to looters and plunderers from the West. There are more provocations against Russia, including NATO's Steadfast Defender 24, which is expected to be the largest NATO military exercise ever. It also comes as the demand is growing from the war hawks in both parties in the United States for attacks on Iran. Now, the latest is Lindsey Graham, who has been committed to not only defending every single war of the military-industrial complex, but with his old sidekick, John McCain, has met with so-called Islamic terrorists, has met with neo-Nazis in Ukraine to pledge U.S. support for their efforts. Lindsey Graham yesterday said the U.S. must hit Iran hard and hit Iran now. So this is and Biden is considering what to do. So this is an extension of the war so that we would now have 3 fronts of war. The U.S. directly involved in Southwest Asia, as it actually is now, in addition to Ukraine and the possibility of a war against China in the Pacific. Now, it also comes as tractors are rolling all across Europe, protesting the policies of the European Union, the economic policies and the green policies. Well, I skipped something I should have mentioned, which is the charges that came from Israel that the United Nations Relief and Works Agency is involved in supporting uh, Hamas terror, and therefore the funds should be cut off to them. Now, there are charges against 12 individuals out of more than 3,000 who work for the UN agency. And this agency is responsible for providing the humanitarian aid. And yet 9 nations have said they're going to cut off funds to the UN agency at precisely the point that the court acknowledged that the humanitarian aid is absolutely essential to avoid starvation and a worse outbreak of epidemic disease. So this is, again, without even a full investigation, just taking Israel's word for it. There's going to be a shutdown of aid and humanitarian relief, which goes against the letter and the spirit of the International Court of Justice ruling. Now, on the question of the backlash against Western governments, there are now tractors rolling through Belgium, and they're going to shut down the traffic in the city of Brussels, which is the center of NATO and the European Union. Paris, the traffic has been shut down by farmers bringing tractors into town. In Germany, the demonstrations continue, and they're explicitly against the policies of the current government, which is not only fully supporting the war against Russia and Ukraine, fully supporting Israel in Gaza, but also joined the case against the South African motion that was brought before the International Court of Justice. The German government has become the worst among the subservient nations of Europe in bowing into pressure from the US and the United Kingdom to carry out this war on humanity. Now, Biden also announced yesterday that the US will issue no new permits to deliver liquefied natural gas to Germany. This is after the US, according to Seymour Hersh, was responsible for the destruction of the Nord Stream pipelines. Is this how you treat your allies? In the midst of a winter, with prices going through the roof, you now are going to cut back on the liquefied natural gas that you promised as a result of the loss of the pipelines? Now, to get back to the Gaza situation, Sunday night in Jerusalem at the International Conference Center, thousands of settlers gathered to cheer the actions taken by government ministers. They cheered and danced as Itamar Ben-Gvir, Netanyahu's national security advisor, and Smotrich, the finance minister, along with 6 members of Knesset, signed what they called a covenant of victory and renewal of settlement to build new occupied settlements in Gaza and to encourage, quote, voluntary emigration, unquote, from Gaza. Well, this violates the ruling from the International Court of Justice. This is promulgating hate. This is moving toward eliminate Palestinians from Gaza, which the court said must not be done. Smotrich, in his comments, said settlement is security. That is taking away land that's supposed to belong to the Palestinians for a Palestinian state, as defined by treaties and international law, that this has to be done in order to provide security for Israel. Well, this just proves there is no rules-based order, just thievery and corruption. The fact that they're going to build new settlements, they're talking about new settlements in Gaza after the massacre of Palestinian women and children and the destruction of the infrastructure. They're planning on rebuilding it and protecting it with military force for the sake of Israeli landlords. Now, this is something which must be heard, must be looked at by the populations of the United States and the citizens of Europe. And their voices must be raised against this. That's what the new paradigm is. We act for the benefit of every other nation, every other sovereign nation, as opposed to the speculators and land predators who fund the governments that rule in the West. And I'll again append to the description section below the report, the Schiller Institute statement, which should be circulated as widely as possible. Let your voice be heard. We cannot be silent in the face of such corruption and murder. Hello, thanks for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of our videos. Support our independence to produce videos like these. Become a member of the LaRouche organization at thelarouche.org/member. By becoming a member for $25 or more, you'll get special access to the EIR Alert Daily Briefing and Weekly Magazine, which is what I read to stay on top of things.